Some stories echo through the ages. They speak of great cities. The story of Gomorrah is one such tale. It is a name often linked with another city, Sodom. Together, they represent a powerful warning, a story of choices, consequences, and divine attention. Understanding Gomorrah is not just about looking back, it is about seeing ourselves more clearly. These cities, we are told, were vibrant, full of life, yet they vanished from the earth. Their disappearance was sudden, and it was complete. What could cause such a thing? The ancient writings offer an answer that has fascinated people for thousands of years. It speaks of a judgment, a cleansing fire. This story has been passed down through generations. It has shaped beliefs. It has inspired art and literature. It continues to challenge us. The mystery of Gomorrah is not just spiritual, it is also historical. Did these cities truly exist? If so, where were they? Archaeologists and scholars have searched for answers. They have dug into the earth. They have studied ancient texts. The search for Gomorrah is a quest for truth, a desire to connect the stories with physical reality. It is a journey into a distant past. The primary source for Gomorrah's story is the book of Genesis. This is the first book of the Hebrew Bible. It is also part of the Christian Old Testament. Here, Gomorrah is described as one of 5 cities. These were known as the cities of the plain. They were located in a fertile valley. This valley was near the Dead Sea. The other cities were Sodom, Admah, Zeboim, and Zoar. These cities were known for their prosperity, but they were also known for something else. Genesis chapter 18 tells us a key part of the story. God reveals to Abraham his plan. The plan was to investigate the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah. The sins of these cities were said to be very great. Abraham, concerned for any righteous people there, pleaded with God. He asked if the cities would be spared if righteous people were found. This conversation shows a God who listens. It shows a God who is willing to show mercy. But the extent of the city's corruption was profound. The narrative continues in Genesis chapter 19. 2 angels, disguised as men, arrive in Sodom. Lot, Abraham's nephew, lived there. He showed them hospitality. He urged them to stay in his home. This was a mark of righteousness in a corrupt city. However, the men of Sodom surrounded Lot's house. What exactly were the sins of Gomorrah and its sister city, Sodom? The Bible offers several insights. The most direct account in Genesis 19 focuses on the attempted assault. The men of Sodom wanted to harm the angelic visitors. This showed a profound lack of hospitality. It also showed a desire for violence. In ancient cultures, hospitality to strangers was a sacred duty. To violate this was a grave offense. It signaled a breakdown of moral order. Later, biblical texts expand on the reasons for destruction. The prophet Ezekiel, for example, speaks of Sodom's sin. In Ezekiel 16 verses 49 to 50, he says, "Now this was the sin of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy." This paints a picture of social injustice. It highlights pride, complacency, and a lack of compassion. These were sins of omission as much as commission. They neglected their duties to fellow human beings. The New Testament also refers to Sodom and Gomorrah. Jude chapter 1 verse 7 mentions them. It says they gave themselves up to sexual immorality and perversion. For centuries, the story of Gomorrah was accepted as truth, a divine act, a historical event. But as time passed, questions arose. Where exactly were these cities located? Could their remains be found? This curiosity sparked a long quest, a quest involving explorers, theologians, and archaeologists. They all sought to connect the biblical narrative with tangible evidence. The search for Gomorrah became a fascinating intersection of faith and science. It was a journey into the past. Early explorers and pilgrims traveled to the Dead Sea region. They looked for clues in the landscape. The desolate environment around the Dead Sea seemed to fit the story. The presence of sulfur and bitumen, a type of natural asphalt, was noted. These materials are flammable. They could be linked to the biblical description of fire and brimstone. Ancient historians like Josephus and Tacitus also wrote about the area. They mentioned traditions of cities destroyed by fire from heaven. These accounts fueled the search. Section 5. Whispers from the Earth-Tal el-Hammam story. One of the most talked about sites in recent years is Tal el-Hammam. This archaeological site is in Jordan. It is located in the southern Jordan Valley, northeast of the Dead Sea. Excavations here began in the early 2000s. They have revealed a large, ancient city, a city that was occupied for thousands of years. It was a major urban center during the Bronze Age. This is the general time period when many scholars place Abraham. The findings at Tal el-Hammam are intriguing. Archaeologists have uncovered massive defensive walls. They found gates, temples, and palaces. This suggests a sophisticated and powerful city-state. But what makes Tal el-Hammam particularly relevant is how it ended. Evidence suggests the city met a sudden, high-heat, catastrophic destruction. This happened around 1650 BCE during the Middle Bronze Age. The destruction was widespread and devastating. It left a thick layer of ash and debris. Some researchers propose a dramatic theory for this destruction. They suggest a cosmic airburst event. Section 6 Alternative Sites, Unearthing Other Possibilities. While Tal el-Hammam has gained much attention, it is not the only candidate. The search for Gomorrah and its sister cities has explored other locations. For many years the focus was on sites south of the Dead Sea. This was based on interpretations of the biblical geography. Two prominent sites in this southern theory are Bab edh-Dhra and Numeira. These are located on the southeastern plain of the Dead Sea in modern-day Jordan. They too show signs of ancient life and destruction. Bab edh-Dhra is a large early Bronze Age site. It was a walled town. It also had an extensive cemetery. Archaeologists excavated here in the 1960s and 70s. They found evidence that the town was destroyed by fire. This destruction occurred around 2350 BCE. This date is earlier than the Middle Bronze Age setting often proposed for Abraham. However, some scholars argue for an earlier timeline for these events. The site shows clear signs of a thriving community that met a violent end. Numeira is a smaller site located south of Bab edh-Dhra. It is also an early Bronze Age town. Section 7. The Dead Sea's Embrace, a land of stark beauty and history. The Dead Sea itself is a key part of this story. It forms the backdrop to the biblical narrative of Gomorrah. This remarkable body of water is unique. It is one of the saltiest lakes in the world. It is also located at the lowest point on Earth's land surface. Its shores are barren in many places. The high salt content means very little can live in its waters. This gives it its name, the Dead Sea. This landscape evokes a sense of desolation, perhaps even a reminder of past judgment. Geologically, the Dead Sea lies in a rift valley. This is an area where tectonic plates are pulling apart. This geological activity has shaped the region for millions of years. It is an area prone to earthquakes. Some have suggested that natural events like earthquakes could have played a role. Perhaps they ignited deposits of bitumen or natural gas. This could have contributed to the destruction of the cities. The land itself seems to hold ancient secrets. Its very nature speaks of powerful forces. The area around the Dead Sea has been inhabited for millennia. Despite its harshness, oases and fertile areas existed. The plain of the Jordan was described in Genesis as well-watered. Section 8. Gomorrah's Shadow Today, Tourism and Reflection. The story of Gomorrah continues to resonate in the modern world. It is more than just an ancient tale. It draws people to the region. Tourists, pilgrims, and scholars visit the lands around the Dead Sea. They seek to connect with the biblical past. They want to see the places mentioned in these sacred texts. Some come looking for archaeological evidence. Others come for spiritual reflection. The narrative of Sodom and Gomorrah is a powerful draw. It sparks curiosity and contemplation. Several sites in Jordan and Israel are associated with the story. Mount Nebo, for example, offers panoramic views. Moses is said to have viewed the Promised Land from here. This view includes the Dead Sea and the Jordan Valley. Lot's Cave, near the southern end of the Dead Sea, is another site. Tradition holds that Lot and his daughters took refuge here after fleeing Sodom. A monastery was built near the cave in the Byzantine era. These places provide focal points for visitors. They help to make the ancient stories more tangible. The archaeological sites themselves, like Tal el-Hammam or Bab edh-Dhra, attract interest. Section 9. Timeless Warnings, Spiritual Lessons from the Dust. The story of Gomorrah is rich with spiritual lessons. These lessons remain relevant for us today. They transcend time and culture. One key lesson is about the consequences of sin. The Bible presents the destruction of Gomorrah as a divine judgment, a response to pervasive wickedness. This serves as a warning. It suggests that actions have consequences, that societies built on injustice, cruelty, and immorality are unsustainable. They invite their own downfall. Another important lesson is about hospitality and compassion. Lot's righteousness was shown in his willingness to protect strangers. The sin of Sodom was highlighted by its violent inhospitality, and, as Ezekiel pointed out, their neglect of the poor and needy. This reminds us of our moral obligations to others, especially to the vulnerable and marginalized. A society is judged by how it treats its weakest members. This is a timeless truth. We are called to kindness and empathy. The story also speaks about divine mercy and patience. Abraham's dialogue with God shows a God who is willing to spare the wicked for the sake of the righteous. God did not act hastily. The angels were sent to investigate.